Hello guys, and this is Scott here, and welcome to another historic video. This one wasn't a request that I had, it was simply just one that I wanted to throw in. In this one we're having a look at a poor summer in the 1980s. Now a few days ago I did a quick poll on Twitter just to see which one you wanted, and this was the one you chosen, the summer of 1988, which as you can see from the poll had a pretty horrible July. So I just thought it'd be interesting to have a look at a completely different summer than what I normally have a look at, and show you what can happen really when you get quite a dreadful summer pattern going. So just before we get started, I'd just like to say that many of the charts that you see in this video come from the historical archive at wetterzentral.d. They have an archive of charts going back to January the 1st, 1871. So as I always say, if you want to request a historic video, it can be of any weather event season starting in 1871. And many of the facts and figures that you hear in this video come from Trevor Harley's personal weather website. He has a detailed set of factual information going back to the start of the 1900s and even further back than that, for each weather month. So it really is quite a remarkable resource. So as always, I'll leave the links to those two websites in the description below. Now we're going to start on the 1st of June 1988, and June 88 wasn't a particularly awe-inspiring month. It has a central inland temperature of 14.4, which is about average, and it was quite a dry month as well actually, and that's quite surprising in quite a wet summer, well in quite a rubbish summer. But as we go through, you'll see that it's not quite as simple as that. So there we are on the 1st of June, and you can see that we've got high pressure, hints of high pressure around Greenland, you can see by those yellow colours there, and low pressure running through the Atlantic into the UK. So already that's a pretty poor sign for the summer. There's high pressure around Greenland, as I'm sure a lot of you know, is never a good sign in the summer. So as we go through these opening days of June, so through the 2nd and into the 3rd of June 1988, you can see that we generally have low pressure running through the country, and into the 4th, before high pressure tries to ridge in by the 5th. So this is where it turns relatively dry. So as we go through the 6th, 7th and into the 8th of June, you can see that high pressure just positions itself to the west and the northwest of the country. Now this pattern isn't really as good as it looks, because you'd think looking from that there's really going to be a spell of quite warm and dry weather. But that doesn't really happen, because as you can see across the country we're dragging down a bit of a northeasterly wind there, which isn't overly warm. It's not overly cold either in June, but it's not particularly awe-inspiring, and as it blows over the North Sea it's actually bringing in quite a bit of cloud. So yes, it's relatively dry and yes, it's relatively settled, but to be honest, quite cloudy and not all that remarkable weather. And really this sits with us for most of the month, can you believe? So through the 9th and the 10th, that high pressure just sits to the northwest of the country, around Iceland. We do get the odd nice day mixed in, but the main theme to remember with this is it was generally quite cloudy. So through the 12th and the 14th and the 16th of June, again we just keep that setup going. Through the 18th, we actually get a couple decent days here around the 18th and the 20th of June. As that ridge just gets a bit closer to the country. But again, not overly warm. To get real heat in the summer, you need to get that ridge right on top of the country, or just to the east of the country. And that's not happening in this month. So again, not overly brilliant, but relatively dry, as I said. Through into the 22nd and the 24th, again, you can see that ridge just sits to the west of the country. But as we go through the 25th and into the 26th of June, you can see now that ridge even to the west of us is starting to weaken. And that's going to set us up now for this absolutely horrendous July. See, as we move through into the 27th, you can see that ridge is now starting to very slowly collapse further away to the south and west. And very slowly now we're starting to set up low pressure around the country. So through into the 28th and the 29th of June 1988, you can see now we're starting to get an area of low pressure setting up around the country. So it's turning a lot cooler and a lot more unsettled by this point. And as we go through to the 30th of June 1988, that low pressure is starting to deepen. And that takes us into the 1st of July 1988. And July 1988 is really an infamous summer month. And I mean, it's an infamously bad summer month. Now, it has a central inland temperature of 14.7 degrees, which is absolutely terrible for July. And it's actually the coldest July since 1965. Even more, if that's not enough for you, it was the wettest July since 1936 in the south. And in Scotland, it was actually the wettest July of the century. And more facts for the temperatures. In this month, London actually failed to exceed 22 degrees, that's 72 Fahrenheit in this month. And Plymouth only reached 18.3 degrees, can you believe? And Land's End actually only hit 16 degrees. So this really is the absolute pits of a summer month. And on average there was actually 23 rain days across the country. So an absolutely diabolical summer month. And really that chart there for the first just sums up what's going to be a feature for the entire month. You can see high pressure well to the southwest of the country and low pressure just sat right on top of us. And as we go through to the second, you can see now we're starting to build heights up towards Greenland. So again, that's never a good sign in the summer. And we have low pressure just sat right on top of the country. So it's a lot cooler and a lot more unsettled. June wasn't a particularly awe-inspiring month, but it's a million times better than what happens in July, that's for sure. Into the third, and that low pressure actually starts to move away into the North Sea, into the fourth, and really that just puts us under quite a northerly wind there. Look at that is an absolutely diabolical chart for midsummer. High pressure ridging all the way through the mid-Atlantic, up towards Greenland, and low pressure generally around the country, and we're under a northerly wind. So daytime temperatures were really restricted under this. There's lots of cloud and rain around. It's just absolutely atrocious summer weather. Into the 5th and the 6th of July, that just stays around the country. Again, just notice how much blocking we've got to the north. There's absolutely no sign of anything even remotely summery on this. Into the 7th and the 8th of July, again, there's just no change. Into the 9th and the 10th, we try to get a bit of a ridge of high pressure on the 10th of July, but that's quickly pushed away as we bring a fairly deep area of low pressure in again off the Atlantic on the 11th. So again, we bring more rain and fairly fresh winds in off the Atlantic again. Now the Azores High has another go on the 12th, but again it's just flattened off by another area of low pressure on the 13th. Into the 14th, winds go back northerly behind that low pressure. Into the 15th, we tried to get another little ridge of high pressure, but again it's just flattened off through the 16th and into the 17th of July. So there's absolutely no respite at all from the Atlantic. Into the 18th, again it's just a horrendous pattern. More rain bands coming in off the Atlantic. Into the 19th and the 20th of July, again it's just cool and wet. As often Atlantic winds often are at this time of the year, northwesterly winds are pretty chilly. Into the 21st and the 22nd, again just absolutely no change. More wet and windy weather coming in off the Atlantic. This point's high summer by now, and it's just daytime temperatures are just in the mid-teens, and that's at best. You know, in Scotland they're actually barely into double figures, so it really is a diabolical month. I know I keep saying that. Into the 23rd and the 24th again, and on the 25th, look at that, we really bring quite a deep area of low pressure in for the time of year. You know, the central pressure in that's down to 985 millibars, so that's really extremely deep. You know, that's something you'd expect in like October, November, December. You know, so that's bringing gales across the country as well as heavy wind, as well as heavy rain, sorry. And actually it stays very windy into the 26th. You know, it's just absolutely atrocious. Into the 27th again, we're just bringing another area of low pressure in off the Atlantic. You know, will it ever end? I'm sure people must have been thinking at the time. Into the 28th and the 29th of July, and really that's where we finish off the month. So the 30th and the 31st of July, again we're just bringing more cold and wet weather, and winds actually try to go a bit into the north again on the 31st of July. And then that takes us into August 88, and August just rounds off the summer really. August 1988 has a central inland temperature of 15.2 degrees, so again that's not a particularly good CET either. So again, another pretty poor month waiting in the wings. And again, it was a fairly wet month in the west, so you know, not really that much of an improvement. So there we are on the 1st of August, and again we just have high pressure to the south and low pressure to the north. Into the 2nd, and actually into the 3rd, we do get finally a bit of a ridge. So through the 4th and into the 5th, you can see the Azores High actually tries to ridge into the south of the country. But again, we keep low pressure to the northwest, so it's really only the south that benefits from this, whilst the north and west generally keeps it quite cool and unsettled. Through the 6th and the 7th of July, you know, finally it turns a bit warmer for the country. So we actually have temperatures on this day, you know, going up into the mid-20s in the south. So, you know, it's okay, but it's not particularly fantastic for August, but it's certainly an improvement on what we've had. And into the 8th, before by the 9th again, that high pressure starts to retreat to the north, and we threaten to bring another fairly deep area of low pressure in off the Atlantic. Again, another exceptionally deep storm at 985 millibars there. And that very gradually moves in on the 10th and into the 11th of August. You know, the low pressure undercuts that high pressure around Greenland. Into the 12th and the 13th of August. So again, the pattern that we saw through most of July just returns through this middle part of August 1988. Into the 14th, again another fairly deep area of low pressure coming in off the Atlantic. You know, into the 15th and the 16th of August, you know, again high pressure tries to have a little go before that's quickly flattened off through the 17th and the 18th of August by another fairly deep area of low pressure. I think this one actually had tropical origins, as you often get, as a lot of low pressure systems often do at this time of the year. And again through the 19th, it's just same old story really. More low pressure systems coming in off the Atlantic. Into the 20th, and actually winds on the 21st going northerly again behind that area of low pressure. So we bring in another shot of pretty cool air for the time of year. So again, temperatures not much into double figures, to be honest. You know, into the 22nd and the 23rd of August. You know, another one on the 24th. You know, there's not really much you can say about this except the fact that we constantly have cold and cloudy weather coming in off the Atlantic. Into the 25th and the 26th, and really that just stays with us through the rest of August really. So the 27th, 28th and the 29th, you know, it's just wet and windy. Into the 30th, And then finally on the 31st, that comes and puts the summer to bed. So, you know, it really was a pretty horrendous summer. And the mad thing was, it was actually the fourth pretty horrendous summer on the trot. You know, most of the mid-80s summers were actually pretty diabolical. So I bet by this point they must have just been wondering, when are we going to get a decent summer? Well, that finally happened the following year. And we might have a look at the summer of '89 in a historic video. But for now, that's going to do us for this one. Now, it's just a quick one, but I just wanted to do something a bit different to what we normally do in a lot of these summer videos. So yeah, as I always say, if you have requests, just leave them in the description below, in the comments section below, or send one to me via Twitter. But yeah, that's going to do us for this historic video. So thanks for watching everyone, and I'll see you later.